Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TDWI webinar program. I'm Andrew Miller, and I'll be your moderator. For today's program, we're going to talk about how to drive customer-centric experiences by activating your data. And our sponsors today are Databricks and Hightouch. For our presentations today, we'll hear first from David Stoddard with TDWI. And after David speaks, we have presentations from Pavitra Rao with Databricks and Andrew Jeshen with Hightouch before moving into a panel discussion. Before I turn over the time to our speakers, I'd like to go over a few basics with everybody. Today's webinar will be about an hour long, and at the end of their presentations, our speakers will host a question and answer period. So if at any time during these presentations you'd like to submit a question, just use the Ask a Question area on your screen to type in your question. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, please click on the Help area located below the slide window, and you'll receive technical assistance. If you'd like to discuss this webinar on Twitter with fellow attendees, just include the hashtag TDWI in your tweets. And if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, please locate the resource window to download the PDF. Lastly, we are recording today's event and we'll be emailing you a link to an archived version so you can view the presentation again later if you choose. Again, today we're going to be discussing how to drive customer-centric experiences by activating your data. And our first speaker is David Stoddard. He is the Senior Director of Research for Business Intelligence at TDWI. As an analyst, writer, and researcher, Dave has provided thought leadership on key topics in BI, analytics, IT, and information management for over 2 decades. Previously, he headed up his own independent firm and served as Vice President and Research Director with Ventana Research. He was also the founding Chief Editor of Intelligent Enterprise and served as Editorial Director there for 9 years. With TDWI Research, Dave focuses on providing research-based insight and best practices for organizations implementing BI, analytics, performance management, and related technologies and methods. Welcome, Dave, and with that, I will pass it over to you now.
Thanks very much, Andrew, and welcome to everybody today. We got a great topic that certainly for, I think, just about every organization, particularly organizations today, having much more direct contact with customers and have more channels for engagement with customers and have to be thinking about customer experiences. So we're going to talk about how to drive customer-centric experiences by activating your data. So we'll talk about the principle of activating data in this webinar. So let me get started. Just to get kind of the big picture here, organizations are definitely leaning on analytics. They want to be data-driven. Analytics drives competition for customers. I think this has been evolving certainly for quite a while, and at this point, it's really at a fever pitch, really, as organizations are trying to take the most advantage and maximize, particularly their first-party data, the data that they're collecting directly from customers through various channels and engagement that way. So organizations want to modernize data strategies to modernize customer experiences, and that we see that in our research as a major goal for getting away from legacy systems that really cannot keep up with the variety, the volume, and the speed of this data as it's coming in from lots of different sources and channels. Customer-centric operations need 360-degree views of customers. So the basic idea there is to try to have all of your data that you have about a customer from all the different touch points, all different types of data, and be able to integrate that data and get an integrated view of all of that data. So this is what fuels or is fueling analytics for personalized marketing, to gain deeper insights into customer behavior so you can look at trends and patterns there in segments and with individual customers, understanding loyalty and how to build higher loyalty for the most valuable customers. What are influencing customers and what are the attributions? So how effective are your marketing campaigns and your messaging to drive buying opportunities? So informed customer service is also a differentiator for organizations. If you have, again, the ability to prioritize, to understand customer issues before they get there, if you have knowledge about the customers based on the data, customers certainly appreciate that, and it can be helpful in streamlining the operations for customer service. So looking at some of our research, growth in and demand for customer data, it shapes overall data strategies. It's really one of the driving, not really the driving thing. And we see here, just to pick out a few points, most important drivers for data platform management, integration, modernization. Organizations want to increase operational efficiency and effectiveness, and really the target there is the customer-centric operations. So sales, marketing, support, all of the things that are involved with the customers and determining customer strategies. Generating new business strategies and models using analytics. So there you need, particularly when you're dealing with customers and looking at markets, you want to be flexible, be able to be ready to use data effectively to develop new strategies, change strategies. And certainly in the last few years, organizations really had to be very nimble and agile in being able to change their strategies and to understand different kinds of buying patterns and what is interesting to customers. Support faster, more automated decision-making. So a lot of applications that are also directly relating to customers or engaging with customers, AI-driven, automating the decision-making there so it can be done more in real time. A problem there is data silos. A lot of cases, a lot of operations are in data silos, and so it affects all of these areas. So we see here that only 15% are very successful right now at the digital transformation goal of integrating the multi-channel customer experiences, reducing data fragmentation, so getting that customer 360, the complete view. 38% are somewhat successful. So, it's not bad, but there's a lot of room for improvement there. Ease of use is a big issue. So it's difficult to use this data for non-technical marketing people, sales, support people. 73% saying that self-service is extremely or very important. So it's a very high priority in organizations, but it's often falling short because it's not easy enough to use. It's not easy enough to actually use the data and analyze the data. So accessing customer data, making it fit for use in tools and applications, it needs to be doable for non-technical users. So the data challenges, to kind of put them on one slide, single views are difficult to get all relevant data. It's elusive. Just 23% are satisfied with this. Consolidating data is a very high priority in organizations, but there's still a lot of difficulty and a lot of ways to go there to make that really happen and in fully so it's satisfying. Trust in the data quality is shaky, and it's often because it is in the silos and it's difficult to manage in a holistic way all the data quality processes and end-to-end processes that are necessary. So improving data quality is the number one objective for modernizing data management and integration. Siloed customer data, making it difficult. Data pipelines and navigating APIs. So this is something that really consumes a lot of time in organizations, is to try to straighten this out, to get good pipelines, to reduce errors and mistakes in there, to get the end-to-end processes together. And we see here that only 12% are very satisfied with data pipelines, 23% for ETL systems. It's challenging to develop both of these, and particularly as customer data sources expand to get, in other words, to get bigger, more various, more number of them. So this is all a challenge organizations are facing that we'll be talking about in our webinar today. So consolidating to customer data platforms is a major goal in many organizations, to consolidate all the customer data. It could be transaction data, behavior data, various engagement records, other ways that you're engaging across multiple channels. To target, the collective target is the first party data, as I mentioned, the direct data that you're getting, but you could also have second and third party data in there. It's the idea to enable a 360-degree customer view, to get that single view of the customer. It's a good place to centralize governance because you're dealing with, could be personally identifiable information. And so you want to be able to govern all that data, know where that data is, be able to respond to audits, to apply it, to adhere to regulations. Is a place to structure the data into profiles so that it's fit for purpose. So you're starting to move it to where users can really make the most use of it for segmentation, understanding audience segments, marketing programs, seeing channels in an integrated fashion. It is usually built to support BI and analytics, might be a data warehouse or some sort of data platform like that. But again, what we're going to talk about today is trying to get over some of the challenges of trying to move from that to where it's more usable for non-technical people in marketing and other customer-centric operations. So some of the challenges that organizations are facing with them, as much as they've built them to be unified, they're often not single and unified. They could be running in parallel with other data warehouses, other data lakes. Now we're talking about different kinds of analytics platforms. They're active in organizations, so it often is not single and unified. So that's a problem in itself, is having to understand how it relates to the data warehouse, where you have copies, extracts of that data, and then it creates data duplication issues, which can be expensive and create data quality issues. And it's difficult to get that last mile, to get the data out to tools and applications. That's often a slow and complex process, often a lot of hand coding involved. So you need specialists to come back in. So it's not really something non-technical users can do very easily. So let's do a poll right now of our audience and just talk about customer data platforms and what you're using. So the first question is really, does your organization currently use or plan to use a customer data platform? So you currently use one and you are satisfied with it. Second is you have a CDP, but you're not satisfied with it. Third would be we're planning to have a customer data platform soon. So you don't have one yet, but it's on the planning boards. Fourth answer is multiple data repositories collect our customer data. We do not have a single customer data platform. And then finally, well, actually, the fifth answer is we have no current plans for a CDP, but are interested to learn more. So I'm sure that's the reason why you're on our webinar today. And then the final answer would be you don't know. Okay, so let's, I want to make sure I have everybody who's answered. And okay, let's take a look at what the answers are. And I want to write these down so we can refer to them later. So 8.3% saying they currently have one and are satisfied with it. 16.7%, so actually double that, say they have one but are not satisfied with it. So that's a note here, that lack of satisfaction with the CDP. 8.3%, so the same percentage planning to have one soon as they currently have one, but 50% say they have multiple data repositories that collect customer data and they don't have a single one. So that actually was the answer I probably would have expected, because we do see that a lot at TDWI and organizations, that it's not all consolidated in one platform. 16.7%, no current plans for a CDP, but are interested to learn more. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, that's great answers there. So I wanted to ask a second question. So let's get a little deeper into the CDP issue. So the question here is, which of the following is your most challenging customer data platform issue? So the first is scalability. So is it scalability to handle increasing data volume and sources? So you've got more data, that's the problem. And the second would be, we do not have a unified customer data. We still have additional silos. So that would be probably a lot of folks in that 50% that answer that they have multiple data repositories. So that's the second answer. Third is provisioning data from the CDP to end tools and applications is slow and difficult. So problem that we'll talk about in terms of activation of that data. That's the third issue. Fourth is our CDP is rigid and lacks flexibility. So you've got lots of changes that are happening, lots more data, different models, but it's too rigid and inflexible. And then the next answer would be ease of use for non-technical users is not good enough. And then total costs are rising faster than expected. So this is an issue we also see in organizations, that the costs are racing ahead of what they had planned, and that's an issue. And then finally, we have other, which is ask a question. You can supply an answer in the ask a question box, and we'll take a look at it in the audience Q&A. Okay, let's take a look at what the answers are. So 7% or 7.7% say that it is scalability issues. And 38.5% saying they don't have the unified customer data. So that kind of goes along with the 50% that we had before. Almost a quarter, 23.1% saying the provisioning data CDP to end user tools is difficult. So that's an issue that we'll be discussing today. 15.4% our CDP is rigid and lacks flexibility. So that's a significant problem for organizations. So let's see what we have. 15.4%. So also the same percentage saying ease of use is the issue, and total cost rising, because nobody answered that one. And okay, good. So we can see here that most are saying that they don't have the unified customer data, but we do have a quarter saying that provisioning to the end tools is the problem. All right, so solving challenges, and this is really what we're going to be talking about a lot today. So this is just kind of set out some of the issues that we're going to talk about. So first is the data lakehouse, and so we'll hear from Pavitra about that. We see here that 32% are using one now, and 36% plan to use. This is our 2022 research. And actually, I'll be doing a research project this year, so we'll get an update on that data for 2023, but that's as of late last year. So the data lakehouse is in use. It enables singles views. It allows more flexibility. And so we'll be talking about that as well for multiple data types and models than previous CDPs or data warehouses that tend to be more rigid. customer data activation. So this is about trying to modernize processes all the way through the process, so through the transformation and provisioning the tools integrated to get it across that last mile eventually, so as you get it through and make that last mile go a lot faster. So unlocking value that way, enabling insights without the delays, and there's often sort of another hop or two from the BI tools to those end tools and applications. So trying to reduce that and make it much more direct. Organizations have lots of sources. They also have lots of destinations. And so that's a complex issue in organizations to face, is that they often have to do sort of a customization for each one, and that can take an awful long time. So we'll be talking about Hightouch and how they're able to reduce that complexity and make it easier. So enable data-driven decisions to upgrade customer experiences across channels is a major goal. And then try to get some more timely data. So again, reducing sort of the latency in there, the more you can make it simpler. We'll be talking about the idea of composable CDP. So making it more customizable, more flexible to deal with the unique requirements that users have, the different applications and end tools have, rather than having kind of a one-size-fits-all approach that is often the case when you just have sort of the legacy systems. And then reducing complexity for analytics and data science coming up. So they'll be using this as well to try to move faster, because often with those processes, that's where they get kind of gummed up, is really just trying to work with the data and get the data. So it'd be great to be able to reduce that delay. The key concept in data activation is reverse ETL. And again, we'll be hearing more about that from Andrew at Hightouch. So this is about generally about copying, synchronizing the data so that it stays in sync with the CDP and ultimately the source systems, rather than going through, again, the whole kind of multi-hop system of going from BI. This is about using ETL concepts to reverse ETL concept, I should say, to move it from the CDP or the data platform to the end tools and platforms. So getting it out. So rather than ETL, which is about getting traditional ETL, I should say, which is about getting the data in from the sources through the transformation processes to the data warehouse. This is about getting the data out to the users. Okay, so those kind of sets out some of the things we'll be talking about in our discussion section. And so Andrew, I'll hand it back to you.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Dave. That was a great presentation. Before I get to our next speaker, just a quick reminder to our audience that if you have a question, you can please ask it at any time in the Ask a Question window. We will be answering audience questions in the final portion of the program. This does bring me to our next speaker, who is Pavitra Rao with Databricks. She is a delivery solutions architect at Databricks, working in the fintech organizations. Pavitra has 7 years of experience in working with startups to Fortune 100 organizations in helping them architect robust data and AI platforms and use cases. Welcome, Pavitra, and I will pass it over to you now. Quick technical difficulty here from Pavitra. Let's see if we can have her rejoin.
Hi.
There we go.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
Go
I
right
did
ahead.
refresh. Yeah, awesome.
No worries.
Cool. Thanks, David. That was really, really eye-opening, some of the results that you shared and the real challenges that organizations face. So in the next two sections, as David mentioned, let's try and understand how Databricks and Hightouch will solve these challenges, especially on the CDP solution, creating a CDP solution. So I'm Pavitra Rao, as I was introduced. I'm part of Databricks. So let's first understand what is Databricks, and then see some of the Databricks and Hightouch integration, and then leading into Andrew's deeper dive on Hightouch. So Databricks is the Lakehouse company. We are the inventor and pioneer of the data lakehouse. We were recognized by Gartner to be leaders in database management systems, data science, and machine learning platforms. We are the creators of highly successful open source data projects, and to name them, it's Delta Lake, Apache Spark, and MLflow. We are a company of 5,000 plus employees across the globe, and we serve more than 7,000 customers from Fortune 500 to unicorns. So companies have been focused on data for years. We even heard that from David, how data is so critical to build some of these CDP platforms. But even beyond that, data is like the clay. Without that, you can't build bricks, right? Sherlock Holmes says that. Every company is working to be more focused on data. This is a pursuit that's been going on for as long as most of us can remember. Well, the goal to be more data driven hasn't changed. The journey to get there has become more clear than ever. Every organization is thinking about how to become more data forward. More than ever, leaders want to leverage data, analytics, and AI to transform every aspect of their business. Be it like customer engagement, bringing relevance and hyper personalizations for every touch point, product development, workforce experience, business operations, name it. There's so many use cases. Everyone understands this potential and the urgency behind data-driven transformation. But in many organizations, data and the teams who work with are logged in silos that make it difficult to discover holistic insights and move quickly. This operation model is very expensive in both in time and money. So there's been a big push over the years to get better. But in most cases, silos, complexity, and cost exist. The fundamental problem in the way data is managed and used aren't being solved. However, the real goal is to be data forward. At this stage, data and AI are informing every aspect of the business. And I just highlighted some of the use cases around customer engagement, product development, etc. We have seen this play out in every industry, right? Given every industry sector, there are huge customers, giants trying to take advantage of the data, become more data-driven, technology-driven. For example, the FinServe customers who are just banking, now they want to be tech-driven. Most of their reports, the quarterly reports, or even the other statements, if you go through them, they're talking about how they want to use data as the service, which is really, really fascinating. Every company is moving towards data-driven, technology-driven, take most advantage of the data to give the best experience for their customers. But most organizations still struggle, right? Today, you stitch together too many platforms. You have data lake, data warehouse, where all of your structured and unstructured data are sitting. There's an orchestration platform to handle all of your ETL workloads. Then you will have a SQL-based BI stack to do analytics and reporting. Of course, you also have separate stacks for data science, machine learning that are hitting both your data sources and the lake. And likely yet another platform for streaming workloads. Finally, all of these platforms need security and governance, which is likely being handled in multiple different solutions. So you're trying to stitch all of this together. The end, you're dealing with huge amount of data movement and copying that are driving high operational cost. You have slew of governance models that make it hard to know what's correct and who has access to it. And finally, your data practitioners aren't able to work efficiently together, getting slowed down with lot of high friction handoffs. The data lakehouse, on the other hand, offers a very different approach. It starts landing all the data in the cloud data lake, irrespective of which cloud vendor you have, AWS, Azure, or GCP. It's a multi-cloud platform where you can work on more than one cloud vendor at a given time in a unified approach. And instead of silos, a unified data management layer allows all analytical use cases to be performed directly on one copy of the data. So the duplicative costs in storage and complex data engineering are kind of eliminated. All of your data is governed and secured with a single approach, unified single governance model. Now that all your data workloads are able to operate on the same data with the same security and governance policies, functional silos are reduced, making collaboration much easier. As a result, you're able to ship more data products in very, very less time. So how do we do that? So when we talk about the one platform to store, so Delta Lake is the foundation to provide the reliable and performance ETL workloads or your data curation, which I'll talk a little bit about when we see how we provide the CDP solution. And on top of that, we provide a Unity catalog, which is purpose-built for Lakehouse. It simplifies the security and governance across both structured and unstructured data, as well as all data products. And finally, we offer a multi-persona experience that allows every practitioners to work on the same data with their skill of languages, whether it's SQL, Python, or Scala, or even we do have tools that helps your citizen data scientists or SQL analysts to do some clicks and build machine learning models and dashboards, etc. With that, I think it's a very good segue to understand our ecosystem and how we work with some of these partner tools in specific data integrations. We have Hightouch that we are going to focus today, but pretty much we have an open foundation for your data ecosystem for orchestration, data sources. We have so many ML, AI, data governance. So you're not logged in versus you can have extended data platform strategy by adopting Lakehouse and bringing your own tools to make it enriched. So I think David kind of gave a very good introduction to CDP, consumer data platform, but how is that going to work within the Lakehouse? Your whole data journey actually starts with the data collection. So you might have third-party solutions or first-party sources that you want to take advantage of. And we do have a lot of integration partners who can help you easily bring that data in more in a way that the data is reliable and in a more efficient way. So we have a lot of those like Snowplow, Fivetran, name it. I think this kind of the overall picture shows two of them, but pretty much your clickstream data, batch data, real-time data, data from your on-prem, different sources, all of this can be kind of pulled into your lake. When I say lake, it's the data lake, can be your AWS, Microsoft, Google Cloud, or combination of these. And on top of this, you have your Databricks Lakehouse platform kind of built. So Databricks Lakehouse, Delta Lake is a foundation. So it comes with a lot of performance and reliability kind of features. If you're interested, feel free to check it out. And we do have ML Flow, which is another open source project or a package that can help you build models. So within Databricks, once the data lands, you will be able to curate your data from raw data into gold. So that's the stages. So if you've heard about medallion architecture, that's something we adapt here. But pretty much the overall idea is you bring your raw data then gradually improve the quality of it and build that customer golden record or build a customer profile, which is now ready to be picked up by tools like Hightouch, which can help you with data activation and reverse ETL. As enriched data is curated and harmonized in Databricks, Hightouch enables the reverse ETL where data can be moved into operational systems like advertising, marketing, success, and other business platform to extend the value of analytics on Lakehouse. One thing you really want to notice here is this is one unified platform. So you didn't build a separate platform for your serving your CDP use case versus since you have this unified platform, all that data curation stages can be used by other personas. So your data engineers, they might be curating, building the architect of this, but your data scientists, SQL analysts can tap onto the same data, single source of truth to build applications out of it. So I think the biggest takeaway of this integration is you're not building a siloed CDP solution versus you're adding your CDP as extended data strategy or extend your data strategy or management. So that's the biggest takeaway, I think, from this whole solution, where you're not siloed, you have one governance, one source of truth to build your different applications and then lead into data activation and reverse ETL. I think with that, it's a very good segue to have Andrew talk a little bit more about how Hightouch plays a role in data activation and reverse ETL. Over to you, Andrew.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation, Pavitra. I will introduce our next speaker, as you alluded to. His name is Andrew Jeshin with Hightouch. Andrew leads the solutions engineering team at Hightouch, and previously he was a principal solutions engineer at Segment Twilio, and decided to jump over to Hightouch after learning about their vision for the Composable CDP. Please welcome Andrew, and I will hand it over to you now.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. And yeah, thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to speak with you all today. Yeah, I'm just going to run through a couple of quick slides, just to explain the basics of Hightouch. And as Andrew mentioned, many of us at Hightouch actually come from the cloud CDP space, so have a pretty strong perspective on the world of CDPs and a pretty strong conviction in the future direction that we think where it's going to go. Just to talk through what Hightouch is, I'll talk about the basics and then get more into our perspective on CDP and specifically the composable CDP. So at its most basic form, Hightouch basically just helps you synchronize whatever you've modeled within your own data platform and build a highly scalable data pipeline to communicate that golden customer record to any sort of MarTech destination downstream. So basically delivering what you've modeled within your own data platform directly out into marketing automation tools or paid media platforms or SaaS CRMs, but doing so in a way that requires no engineering effort and simply automating this express pipeline from the data warehouse or data lake itself. So we call this reverse ETL or data activation, but it's really just taking what you've already done, leveraging your existing investments that you've already made in data, and then just distributing it back out. So instead of getting data into Databricks for analysis, analytics, et cetera, it's going out, egress pipelines out. So I'll get a little bit more into this, but just at its most basic form, you have data that's sitting in your own data platform, your own data lake, your own data warehouse. We plug directly into that. We are SQL native, require no engineering effort at all, and we just conform to your own existing data models and have a declarative web interface to automate this highly scalable data pipeline. So quite a bit to talk about, but the sort of 101 is really just this automated data pipeline. And this technology is rather new. It's like the data lakehouse or data warehouse was traditionally seen as just this more advanced analytics tool. And our central thesis is that this really can be your marketing engine. It can be the central storage layer that the entire business aligns on, not just the data team, to actually centralize who is the customer? And then from there, all you need is sort of this activation layer to then distribute that back out to the rest of your business tools. So this comes into a pretty strong perspective about customer data platforms and the CDP. And this is our main hot take, and it's something that we've published a lot of different blogs around the internet on, is that the idea of a traditional off-the-shelf cloud CDP is a category that's really destined for failure. This idea of a CDP, it ends up being this very expensive, highly redundant second copy of the data that has a very rigid sort of data schema, and you're constantly trying to synchronize your source of truth between what your data team's doing in a much more comprehensive way down in the data lake versus the second source of truth that you're trying to have your marketing teams align on. So when you talk about potentially purchasing an off-the-shelf CDP, you're looking at a possible 6+ maybe a year-long implementation, because you have to work to actually build these data pipelines and instrumentation to get data into the cloud CDP. Secondly, the cloud CDP is this expensive, you're paying double for the storage and compute on data that's likely already been modeled in your own data platform. And then I spoke of this, but you constantly get into this situation where you're trying to get what your data team's modeled out to exist also in this cloud CDP. So you're in this constant synchronization problem to reconcile these two sources of truth and build data pipelines both from the CDP down to your data lake, as well as from your data lake back into the cloud CDP. And the last point is just that these cloud CDPs are generally they struggle to represent enterprise business. So as organizations mature, they have pretty specific data models. They have different entities. It's not just concept of the user, but maybe there's totally other entities that an organization needs to keep track of and their relationship among each other. The idea is that instead of trying to shove all of that into a proprietary SaaS platform, is to simply leverage and lean in on your investment in data and just use your data lake as your central storage layer for a CDP. Okay, got some construction above me. But yeah, I'll come into our idea of the composable CDP, is that instead of purchasing an off-the-shelf CDP, is instead leaning into this Lakehouse. So the composable CDP, and the whole idea is that you could buy a la carte just the activation layer, a tool like Hightouch that sits directly on top of Databricks, does not store data at all, requires no engineering effort to actually implement, and provides the same CDP experience. So we have this whole no-code, marketing-friendly platform that allows anyone that doesn't understand SQL this visual interface to establish cohorts, define multi-channel campaigns, and actually distribute them out to their business tools in an omni-channel way. So both out to their marketing automation tools, into the world of the paid media platforms like Facebook and Google and Snapchat. But we have this catalog of 100+ MarTech integrations to automate these highly scalable data pipelines directly out into tools that your business teams rely on. And it's a pretty compelling idea. It's just, we come in, we directly implement into your data lakehouse. We don't have to be this huge upfront commitment for this entire 6-month evaluation with all of these different use cases. We can just try this out for one use case at a time. So it's something that you can implement and try out incrementally. Secondly thirdly, is that it's infinitely flexible. So whatever you've modeled, all the entity relationships that you might have within Databricks, we simply conform to your star schema, your data models, and then allow a marketing team to visually filter across those different data models based on your specific business needs. And then the last point is that this whole architectural philosophy is just so much more coherent and reaps the investments of your existing data lakehouse, et cetera. So it's future-proofed. It's just one component of what you've already invested in trying to centralize all your data in one place and actually model out what you understand about your customers. Okay, with that, just wanted to make sure we sort of articulated our perspective, not only on the current state of the CDP, but also the future. There's a lot of different features I'd love to talk about here, but seeing a very promising success with several enterprise organizations adopting this model of simply turning their lakehouse or their data warehouse into their CDP instead of buying this all-in-one monolithic suite that is rigid, takes a long time to implement, and honestly, based on the poll results, ends up not actually meeting the requirements or the expectations within the initial evaluation. Oh, there we go. Cool. So I'll pass it off to the fireside chat.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Andrew. Yeah, it's now time for the panel discussion here. So I'll ask that Dave rejoin us and Pavitra as well. Well done getting through that construction. It's amazing how the construction always starts right when you begin a speech, but well done. So Dave, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you now to begin the discussion.
Thanks, Andrew. And great presentations by both Andrew and Pavitra. So why don't we talk about some of these issues and maybe get to kind of a practical level about problem solving and how people can move forward with it. We've talked about CDPs. We saw in our research, and I think you guys referred to that, well, in the research today, we just saw that 50% say they have multiple repositories that collect customer data. They don't have a single CDP, so that's really a real problem for a lot of folks in our audience today. So how can organizations in 2023, using today's technologies and options, solve their challenges? What's the best way to get started with that? Andrew, why don't I start with you? What would you say for that?
Sorry, just coming off mute. Yeah, how to get started. I think my first question would be, where does data sit today? Many times organizations have it sitting in multiple, systems. But if there is any sort of database where there's valuable information, feel confident in, that would be useful to then get in the hands of your marketing, sales ops, advertising, performance marketing teams, you have an immediate solution to plug in Hightouch and help, distributing that information out. So typically when we work with organizations, we like to talk about the lowest hanging fruit. What's the, easiest quick win that we can pluck off and say, let's take and leverage your existing investment and help you, actually activate that data and get it in the hands of the go-to-market team.
So you did a great job describing and defining what Composable CDP is and comparing it to what the setup is with traditional CDP. Maybe you could just talk through, an example. Let's say you have a marketing team that's trying to figure out how to get more value out of their CDP. What would they do to set up a composable CDP and how it would solve their problems?
Yeah, I guess I could take that again, and curious to hear from Pavitra as well.
Certainly.
My first question would generally be like, where is data sitting today? Many organizations, when they mature at a certain scale, tend to invest in some sort of centralized data platform for their data team. If there is any information or pains that they're having with their existing cloud CDP, but the data they need is actually in some centralized warehouse or cloud data platform or Lakehouse, there's an immediate solution to help distribute that back out. As I mentioned, usually it's us identifying that highest value and quickest win business case and helping us distribute data from the investments you already made in your data platform.
Pavitra, do you want to weigh in on that, just about traditional CDPs and some of the issues there and how to overcome the challenges with them? You spelled out, I think, how the Lakehouse can address those. Oh, maybe you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Sorry for that.
Yep.
So we do have a lot of customer stories where we are helping them build a CDP platform. But coming back to the traditional CDP, I think the biggest thing we hear from them is investing heavy at the first time and not being able to do a pick and shovel kind of use case, and which is something possible with Hightouch, right? Like you can invest small, expand as you get more confidence, you have more proof of it being working well. So I think growing from small to big is what every organization is looking for. They don't want to take the risk of investing on a whole monolithic kind of traditional CDP architecture. And with that, you get the disadvantage of being siloed, right? If your whole CDP system is sitting by itself and not being able to take the advantage of your data lake, the unified platform of it being updated. So in the real world, it's not like one time you build a system and it's done, right? There needs to be a lot of operation and maintenance, the updates, and making sure your end systems are getting the real time reliable data. I think that's where the challenge comes. You won't be able to do that in silos and in parallel. There's so much of time and cost, and even the reliability of the data reduces. So I think those are the real challenges that we hear from customers who are either have had like a traditional CDP system, and why they are looking to move towards the uh, the latest consumable CDP, CCDP systems or solutions.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think both of you made good points about a lot of organizations having to sort of almost pay twice because they've got these two systems. So it makes a lot more sense to be able to consolidate.
Yeah.
When we talk about the reverse ETL, that's an interesting expression. Then data activation, kind of, Andrew, in particular, you made some good points about that. But maybe you could offer just sort of a how does it work? How do you get started with something like that? What would be the first problem set you might try to solve with that?
Yeah, sure. There's quite a spread of different uses that we talk to customers, especially as their first trial in using something like Hightouch. Typically, it falls into the realm of hydrating business tools downstream. Probably our most common use cases are distributing data that's been centralized in some cloud data warehouse like Databricks, Lakehouse, back into a lifecycle email tool, or hydrating first-party data back into the walled gardens for optimizing paid media campaigns. When you talk about getting started, I think this is the most compelling and powerful part about this technology is it requires no engineering effort. So many times we run POCs in less than a week, or we talk to a customer and already they're using our platform because we have a self-service tier to power a highly scalable production data pipeline before we even get on the call with them. So yeah, if you have any information, if you have workflows today where you are regularly exporting data from your data platform and importing it into some downstream system, some lifecycle email tool, some paid media platform, that's an immediate use case we can plug into Databricks directly and automate that. So you plug us in, you specify some SQL query, and then you declare how the data should arrive in the destination at any custom interval. And then we just make sure that is constantly refreshed, and we're incrementally syncing the deltas. And I'll share, many times we talk to organizations and they already have this type of process. Maybe they've built something in-house with some series of in-house pipelines using something like Airflow, or there's like a manual export-import process. It's something that we can very quickly and immediately automate. And then, this grows into a broader platform for marketing teams to actually log in and their own self-service access to query the data and distribute it and explore it.
Yeah, that's great. And certainly a lot of the automation and just taking a lot of the delays. And again, in our poll today, we saw that almost a quarter said that provisioning data from the CDP to end tools and applications is slow and difficult. So this would be good for addressing some of those issues. Avitra, you talked about the data lakehouse role. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about how it can provide that single source of truth for customer data, because organizations that we see in our research are really having a lot of difficulty getting to that, and then addressing the data duplication, data quality issues that they have in front of them.
Yeah, I think that's a real challenge that we see with a lot of customers that we initially talk to. So as our organizations became data driven, I think it was a kind of hunch, or even a path they took. Okay, every small business unit, or even groups within the organization, like the marketing, sales, like product, each of this started building their own small lake kind of solution or like ETL processes. But as the data became big and these organizations kind of unified structurally, they wanted to take advantage of the work that each of these teams are doing. And that's when the challenges arise, because they want to be able to scale, keep up with the competition. So that means they need to be unified in their org structure or even the strategy. And that comes to data, right? Data is main part of the strategy for any organizations now, be it small or big. So traditionally they would have ended up using different tools or platforms like data warehousing for your ETL or even BI and analytics kind of solution. Machine learning, you think of they will either be mostly sitting on cloud using their own favorite tool on desktop or even on the cloud based ones like AWS SageMaker or Azure or GCP. So they ended up like kind of seeing, or generally we see this a lot of trend that organizations are spending a ton of money in just paying license values or even using these different tools. So one of the best ways was to like unify this, right? How do they unify? Can we have a unified platform where I can serve my BI analytics and also have my data scientists, streaming workloads, all of these being running in one unified platform, and I don't have to compromise on the quality of the data or the outcomes or the deliverables that we get from each of these personas or the use cases. So that's when the Lakehouse came into picture, where it serves both warehouse kind of use cases and data science and machine learning. So when we talk about Lakehouse, I think one thing to keep in mind is unification is one thing, but what am I paying for that unification is a biggest question, right? I don't want to spend millions of dollars just to get unification if I'm able to get that done in another way, right? Either I be siloed and get it done. Is it worth the unification? When it comes to Lakehouse, we have seen lots and lots of stories of customers being able to reduce the total cost of ownership and increase the ROI. Later in the section, if I have time, I can share one of the customer use case, especially using Databricks and Hightouch, how much they were able to save a lot of engineer hours and optimization, etc. But I think that's the biggest question, right? The CFOs ask, okay, this is great, you're having unified platform, but what's the advantage for me? Can I live with what I have? But the Lakehouse kind of reduces that TCO and improves the ROI with the benefit of having a unified platform. When it comes to TCO, human hours is one thing, because you have one unified platform, you're not having a lot of people just maintaining different tools. But the other thing is the performance, right? How well my workloads are running. Can I run this at the lower cost, price to performance kind of discussions? So I think it will be huge for organizations to adopt Lakehouse to really keep up with the competitions and be able to serve the customers the best experience.
Okay, that's a great answer. Thank you, Ravitra. And we would like to hear an example of Databricks and Hightouch together. But before we get to that, just want to ask one question about user satisfaction, since we did see that about 15.4%, I think, said ease of use is not good enough. How do they get to increase user satisfaction, meaning the people, the non-technical users in marketing and other customer-centric operations?
I can take that, Andrew, and probably you can talk about Hightouch. That's fine. So ease of use, right? I don't know if most of you have already seen Databricks, but feel free to check out. We have a lot of flexibility in terms of what your persona is. If you're like a core data engineer who likes to code in Scala, you're welcome. But if you're someone who wants to just use your ANSI SQL kind of, I call it like a easy English way, than compared to Scala and other languages. You can use Databricks to do that. And the best part is your engineer and your analyst are working out of the same single source of truth. They're not downloading CSV files to even work offline and then upload it. And there is already some discrepancy between the time they downloaded and there is some change. So you will be able to do all of that within one platform. And we do have AutoML, which is another 5-click steps to get your machine learning models, which are highly optimized, tuned, and you can take that and start serving. So we have a lot of UI for customers, ease of use, get started. And on the other end, we do have APIs and other VS Code kind of connect. If you're a developer who wants to sit in your own favorite IDE and do it, you're welcome. So I think that's the best part, serving to your skill set and your persona and your way of doing things within the data platform is something we really try to achieve with our every release and make sure customers are able to use it with very less friction.
Andrew, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the customer data platform category has been around since 2013, and there's a pretty broad scope of, software vendors, probably 300, 400 vendors that self-identify as a CDP. When you talk about usability, many of these tools have this type of interface that a marketing user who doesn't understand SQL, doesn't understand data models, can come in and understand their customer, build specific cohorts, prioritize those cohorts, and actually distribute them out. That type of interface is obviously really important when you have a mature marketing team that's trying to coordinate activation across different channels, across advertising, across email, et cetera. What we find in my experience in the CDP world before I came to Hightouch is that even if the interface is really, really beautiful and usable, it's only as good as the data that you're able to shove into that proprietary SaaS tool. And I think what's really exciting about Hightouch is that we have a very marketing friendly customer data platform, it's called Customer Studio, but it's providing that same type of interface. But now we're actually plugging into your comprehensive and central source of truth on your own data platform. So it's this delightful UX and sexy UI that really just distills and federates queries down into your specific data platform. So it sort of solves both of those issues. It's extremely usable and friendly to a team of marketers. We have hundreds of marketers in a given workspace. But it's also solving the data access problem where you no longer have to try to pump your data and shove it into the spec of that proprietary SaaS tool. We're simply conforming this exploration functionality directly onto your own data models.
Great. Well, thanks both of you for your answers to that. Maybe in the interest of time, why don't we move on to audience questions? We'll probably get to some of the issues around how Databricks and Hightouch fit together there and how to activate the customer-centric experiences. So let's, Andrew Miller, why don't I hand it back to you for Q&A?
Yeah, perfect. I'll pick it up right where you dropped it there, Dave. We do have a question regarding a specific use case, an example of how data activation was done using data from an EDP without engineering. So perhaps both of you can speak to one specific use case or maybe a couple.
Yeah, I can speak to one. I think one that's right down the middle for us is that a lifecycle email tool, lifecycle email tool or lifecycle marketing team that's coordinating these types of onboarding emails or nurture emails or cross-sell emails. They want access to rich data about their customers and realize that the best source of data where all of these sort of computed insights, it's like a customer attribute library, it's being worked on and built out and invested in Databricks. So a good example is, working with NBA, where they're, this is a large sports organization where for any fan that's going to these different games, there are specific attributes being computed in Databricks, and we're directly hydrating anything that's computed there into their lifecycle email tools so that their lifecycle marketing team has immediate access to, provide extreme personalization and relevant information in the emails that they're sending without needing to go through this I guess, process of constantly making requests to the data team to get data into their tool of choice to actually power those campaigns. Hopefully that was useful. Yeah, happy to share more, but that's probably a very, very common use case, is just hydrating these like different marketing tools.
Fantastic. Pavitra, do you have a use case that you can talk about?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not very specific to this question here, but in general, wanted to share one of the very exciting use case that we recently kind of documented as well. I can share it in the chat. So this customer is Noto. Noto is actually like they provide AI-driven products which aims to make roads safer by making fleets safer. So the company actually delivers like a predictive AI technology that helps drivers prevent collisions without invading their privacy. So this is kind of the high level what they do, but what was their kind of the biggest challenge was on fragile point-to-point integration, as it took new orders or process payments, etc. Right? With this fragile point-to-point integration, if there was one broken integration, could leave its business users unable to serve customers for days and different business systems. So they started looking out for like a single data repository that it could manage in-house and use flexible modern tools, right? And currently, Noto has implemented Databricks Lakehouse to better this service, which is made reliable with Databricks Lakehouse. And they're using Hightouch to sync data automatically from Databricks to Salesforce and from Databricks to NetSuite, eliminating the complex series of scripts and spreadsheets it previously had to track just for data changes. So that's a really, really good story that I can talk about. And end of this initial implementation, they were able to see like a 75% cost optimization compared to their existing ETL system, and 80 plus engineer hours were saved per month. And they have 3 data pipelines within 15 plus tables across internal systems. That's a huge win and a very good customer story to think about how they're able to build a CDP platform with Databricks Lakehouse and Hightouch.
Okay, fantastic. I'll squeeze one last question in here because I think it might serve the audience quite well. You've all touched on it a little bit. Perhaps you can double click here. Pavitra, maybe we'll start with you, and then we'll move to Andrew. So how do we gain executive buy-in to make changes to our CDP and data activation strategy? I think that's a common question we see a lot about.
Yeah, a very common question and very important question I think everyone needs to answer, because think about CDBs, mostly it's something that marketing team needs or any specific team wants to take advantage of, but that doesn't mean you have to just build it in a silo and having to maintain it and suffer from the integration of, not having the integration with a huge data ecosystem. And we have seen this time and again, and we as Databricks, we coach our enterprise customers or even the teams that we talk to. We encourage them to bring in their executives, have the buy-in, because it is not just serving their own use cases. If they do this in the right way, this is something that can scale very easily, and they can reduce a lot of TCO over this, because it becomes a centralized data strategy versus being siloed and having to maintain. And sooner or later, it will be kind of something that they have to maintain just by themselves or being washed away because it's not part of the data strategy. So I think it's very, very critical we have that executive buy-in and kind of help them understand why they need this and why it should be a part of centralized data strategy.
Yeah, I'll answer my perspective. I don't know, these two realms of investing in data in your own data platform and buying something like a customer data platform have historically been totally separate parallel tracks, where the marketing team has their own budget, they buy a CDP, and the data team has their own budget and they're investing in their own data platform. And the central thesis here and perspective of Hightouch is that a CDP by its name alone, customer data platform, should be something that the data team is directly involved in. And we see Hightouch and Databricks as a way to actually bridge collaboration between these two teams, where you're actually just leveraging your existing investments in data, and you don't have to buy this very expensive all-in-one central hub that's really just this second source of truth. So a lot of it is more of an education problem. But when you really get down to the actual outcomes, much lower software fees, much greater operational efficiency, better outcomes is usually a pretty easy sell once we get to the point we've actually educated and allowed in our organization, especially at the executive level, to understand the efficiencies here, as opposed to the previous sort of redundancies across the two separate pooling stacks.
All right, fantastic. Well, unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of our time today. So please allow me to thank our speakers. We did hear from David Stoddard with TDWI, Pavitra Rao with Databricks, and Andrew Jeshen with Hightouch. Also would like to thank Databricks and Hightouch once again for sponsoring today's webinar. And please remember, we did record today's webinar, and we'll be emailing you a link to an archived version, which you can feel free to share with colleagues. And if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, please locate the resource window to download the PDF. Finally, there's just a few weeks left to join us at TDWI Nashville, which is taking place May 14th through May 19th. You can learn from vetted instructors on topics including data governance, machine learning, data fabric, dashboards, and more. You can save 30% off your first TDWI event with promo code FIRST30, that's FIRST30, by May 12th. You can view the agenda at tdwi.org/Nashville, and we hope to see you there. Lastly, from all of us here, let me say thank you so much for attending. This does conclude today's event.